And we are live. So, unless you've been hiding under a rock this past weekend or have not gone on any type of social media this weekend, you are aware that Andy Muschietti's The Flash dropped this weekend. And I was just saying before I went on, I wasn't even going to see it. And then I just decided on impulse that I was on Friday night. And so I went to a Saturday morning matinee, 11 a.m. on Saturday, and came back and saw that my fucking Twitter timeline was just in fucking flames. It was engulfed like it had been hit with fucking napalm. And I'm like, what? People have lost their fucking minds. Holy shit. Like everybody's just going fucking berserk in one direction or another. I've never seen anything like that. Not on Twitter. Somebody said that we've gone back to, and I wasn't here for this because I was overseas, that we've gone back to the Batman versus Superman era, that they hadn't seen anything this bad since Batman versus Superman. That's how bad it was. I offered up my review on it for what it's worth. But then I thought, you know what? I mean, it's such a hot fucking flick. Let's get in and talk about it. So I decided to put some people together. And we have tonight with the shiny glasses, we've got Frank from The Harsh Truth. Thank you for stopping in and getting ready to talk a little Scarlet Speedster with us.
Not a problem, my friend. I'm glad to be here yet again. Always had a lot of fun going on here talking with you guys.
Yeah. And coming back from quite a ways off, the Thin Man. We've got the Pasta Punk Paradox, John K. Alvarez. Thank you for stopping in.
My pleasure.
It's really good to see you. You're looking good. That makes me happy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, you look really fucking good.
Been off the radar for a while, taking care of business, but coming back slowly.
As Cosmo Kramer once said, TCOB, taking care of business.
That's right.
All right, so we got a couple of comments already. We got Tex saying, "Howdy, boys. What's happening, Tex?"
Howdy, Tex.
And we got Eric from Hey Internet Eric here saying, "Good evening, my dudes. I really enjoyed this one. Mike's lost it reading his Twitter concerning this one. Yeah, this place went fucking crazy. Welcome back." And he says, "Welcome back, John."
Thanks, Eric.
And we got Patrick saying, "What the fuck? We passed on antiviral for the Flash." Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So you guys have seen the Flash. Frank, without getting too much into it, give me your impressions. What did you think of the Flash? Was it great? Did you want to gouge your eyes out with dull pencils?
It had some ups and downs. I think it was more good than bad, but there were still some things that for me were really hard to be impressed by. There was a couple of characters I wanted more from. They just weren't really a part of the movie at all. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, there's plenty good and plenty bad to talk about. I think overall it was a good movie, not great.
Okay. Okay. John, what did you think of The Flash?
I gotta be completely honest with you, Mike. I went into The Flash expecting nothing.
Right. Okay.
And when I came out, I got something, but I was expecting maybe a little bit more, but I was not disappointed. It was on a whole, I would give it called a good movie, but
okay, that's fair.
But and I took in consideration with all the changes that were happening and all the changes that were happening to the DC universe. They really tried to make something with everything that was going on.
I heard somebody say that Andy Muschietti was successful and that he was able to get this film out that nobody had been able to do. Nobody had been able to assemble this thing. That's why he's being promoted. I think he's going to direct one of the new DC movies, supposedly, because he was able to put this thing together and just get it out there. I looked at The Flash again. and I just saw I saw more people burying it than loving it before I went in to see it. So I'm like, well, this is just going too far. Like people haven't even seen it yet.
Right.
I saw it and I thought it was very uneven. But if I'm honest in any way, shape, or form, I have to say that there are far worse films out there that are getting dragged a hell of a lot less than this one. It was not the worst thing I've ever seen. It had some issues, but it also had some parts that and this is why it's so fucking uneven. There were parts that I was super invested in, and then there were a couple of times that dragged on where I was like, when is this going to fucking end? Why won't this stop? We got to do something here.
Right.
This movie, is hamstrung, and you guys can jump in whenever you want to. And I will just say this, and then I'll leave it to you guys. There are a number of issues that hamstrung this film, and I don't want it to fail. Now, I don't necessarily want any movie to fail, and I don't want it to fail for a lot of the reasons that I think it is failing. One, Ezra Miller. And Ezra Miller and all of his legal troubles, so on and so forth, leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. Well, maybe I don't want to go see and support this guy's movie. The lack of Henry Cavill, which I think a lot of people wanted. He's not in it, really. I mean, because we're going to be talking spoilers here. He's not in the film. This movie was reshot 3 times. It was reshot 3 fucking times. And to be honest, there were probably 2 other movies, maybe even 3, laying on the floor. Muschietti's already said he's got a 4-hour edit that he could put that's already assembled. But he would have done like a Zack Snyder's Justice League thing with this, and just dropped a Snyder cut, a Muschietti cut. I would love to see something like that. It's had 6 different writers, 6 potential directors. This movie got announced before BVS got dropped. So what is that? 2017.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
To put it in perspective, they announced this movie before the Flash TV show started airing. And the Flash TV show just wrapped up after 9 years, and we just got this movie. So it took almost a decade to get this movie out.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've even read and heard some reports they were talking about this right after Keaton did Batman, like late 80s, early 90s, to bring a Flash movie. They've been trying to bring a Flash movie to the screen for quite a long time.
Well, what cemented this essentially was the Snyder universe and his casting of all these people that have compromised, made up his Justice League. But I mean, when was BVS? 6-7 years ago, something. So before, like you said, more than 9 years ago, something along those lines.
Yeah.
I think one of the also things that hamstrung it was that James Gunn announced his complete reboot before this movie and the Aquaman 2 movie have dropped. So people are assuming, well, why would I go see this movie if I know that this is just kind of a one-off and, maybe this death knell for the Snyderverse and the Snyder casting. So there are a lot of things that have jammed this flick up. And you guys just hop in anywhere. I mean, that was kind of that's kind of what I think of, what's happened here.
Well, when it comes around to, especially after the Snyderverse, when Zack Snyder actually did his thing, what was it, 2 years ago when he brought it to HBO?
Yeah.
He did the 5-hour or 5-hour version of it. There were a lot of people, myself included, who loved that version compared to what was given. And I think that's why they came in hard with James Gunn saying he's here, and it's going to be his vision from this point on. And you're right. It truly hamstrung it, because what were you going to do now with these characters? The one thing I think they did do, and if it's going to be the last of the Snyderverse version of the DCU, they did a nice, if anything, trying to wrap up every loose end they possibly could have had. They didn't succeed in everything, but at least they gave it a shot, to give it an ending. type deal.
I heard someone say that they had the impression that this film was just like Warner Brothers just said, "Fuck this, no more reshoots." Put something together and just fucking drop it. Because there's been complaints about the CGI. We'll get into that a little bit. And it looks hammy. There are certain things that just look, like almost like Scorpion King. Kind of CGI in a couple of scenes. You're like,
wow, that's a hell of a comparison.
Yeah, there are a couple of, like when you see Henry Cavill, there's a brief CGI Henry Cavill in it. And it looks like the fucking Scorpion King. Or you see Barry's perception of what's, of what he sees in the Speed Force. Right. And you're just like, wow, this is not fucking good. A lot of,
I was I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, there's this movie kind of from the jump had a few things going against it. For one, it's Ezra Miller. I mean, sometimes some people have a hard time separating the art from the artist, and I understand. Everybody's got their limit. I've got mine too. I still wanted to see the movie because I want DC to work out great because I'm a fan of all these films. I'm not a fan of DC more than Marvel or vice versa. I want them all to be very, very good. The other thing is and I'll compare it a little bit to the last season of Jessica Jones that was on Netflix at one point, now on Disney Plus. I never bothered watching the last season because they canceled the entire series and really most of the Disney stuff, the Marvel stuff that was going on Netflix before that season even dropped. So part of me was like, why am I going to invest my time to watch 10, 12 episodes of this when I already know it's just going to be an end? And
what was that, Marvel Television or something like that? Well, the one that Netflix was doing.
That was when Ike
Daredevil.
That was when Ike Perlmutter was running a bunch of stuff. But so it's like it's kind of the same thing with this. It's like we don't really know exactly what from the Snyderverse stuff is going to carry over into this new DC thing. Yeah, they've said Blue Beetle, so it's kind of hard to know whether you want to get invested in this or not, because I know everything that I had heard about Michael Keaton being a presence, if not as Batman, at least as Bruce Wayne in this new DCU moving forward. That doesn't, I mean, the way the movie ends, I don't really see that there's an avenue for that. No, and with them scrapping Batgirl, and I think Michael Keaton himself has said in the last week or so that he has no plans in the DCU moving forward right now. Not to say he won't ever do it, but right now, I don't really know how to feel about some of these things because there were great things to see, but it's hard to comprehend them because we're still so out of the loop on exactly what is coming. We know that I don't know if you guys listen to Michael Rosenbaum podcast, but he was on there. James Gunn was on there last week or so, and he said Blue Beetle is going to be a part of his DCEU, so that'll be the first DCEU movie. He said, but Superman Legacy is going to be the one that really kicks it off. And I'm like, so what about Aquaman? I mean, we saw that comes out in November, I think. So, I mean, do I need to invest my time in seeing this? Do I want to get excited about it? Because, I mean, as much as I like The Flash, I don't really think there's much here to stick me to what's coming in front of us. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm saying goodbye to what was in the past in the Snyderverse, or if I'm welcoming something new in, or if this is all a continuation. I don't really know what yet. Like his whole thing on Twitter a couple of months ago when he was outlining his whole plan that kind of blew up the internet, even that was kind of vague. And it's like he said what characters and stuff he wants to work with, but the exact plan to do all this is kind of all over the place. And it's tough for me to look at it and be like, I'm excited about this, lining it up in my own head because there's still a lot of uncertainty. You know what I mean?
Not to mention, nobody knows who the fuck the Blue Beetle is.
Hardcore comic book fans will.
Here's the thing. So that's the 10% demographic.
Right.
Okay, that's the 10% demographic. Okay, here's the thing. Batman, DC is Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. They're like the three greatest characters in all of comic books across Marvel, across DC. Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Nobody knows who the Authority is. You know, when I listen to James Gunn's pronouncements for his plans for the next 8 years or something along those lines, you've got some Themyscira game, like a female Game of Thrones. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? The Authority, nobody knows who the Authority is, except for the 10% demographic. And I should mention, I mean, you'd be naive not to mention the 10% demographic, these huge mega channels, they're in a concerted effort to just tank everything. They just want to tank everything, and they have no idea, what's going to fill the vacuum, but it's some sort of nerd rage thing that's going on with these six-figure, sort of sub-channels where just no matter what you put in, they just broadcast it everywhere to tell people to stay home. And followers are going to follow. And next thing you know, these movies tank. I'm not saying that there's not a legitimate drop in quality, but, that's another one of the reasons why these things are just, bottoming out left and right.
True.
And, Guns DC is another, it's James. It feels like James Gunn's DC. It doesn't feel like he's made a DC that, people are going to relate to, except for, the 10% demographic that know what the hell he's talking about.
Well, Blue Beetle, in all fairness, he also has a pretty big following for the animated stuff. He's been pretty involved in that.
Right.
I mean, I know that doesn't exactly get him out there, the way that Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are out there, but he's got a little bit bigger following. One of my big fears with James Gunn right now is that he likes the obscure characters, and that worked very well for Guardians of the Galaxy because the MCU was already a juggernaut when he rolled out there with that first movie. He's trying to build his own universe, his own comic book franchise of movies, and he's choosing to do it it seems to me like he's going to start with a lot of obscure characters, and I'm like, wait a minute, you want the foundation of
quirky DC.
You want the foundation of your shit to be the two biggest comic book characters ever in Batman and Superman, and Wonder Woman not that far behind. Building it on things like the Creature Commandos. I mean, that's like really, really niche-y meta.
Right.
You're getting into a segment of the lore that is real. A lot of people just don't know about, and it worked great for Guardians because you had a couple of big name stars that were already big stars. You're jumping into the MCU, which is already red hot, so it's going to help there. But now, I don't know. I feel like you need to. I mean, Batman and Superman needed to be the first two films, in my opinion. Now because Blue Beetle's there, you want to work it in. I get it why that's kind of the first official one that he said. Right. And you don't want to waste the movie, but it's like you've got to build your franchise on those two characters, and it seems like it's going to be Superman, and then somewhere down the line, Muschietti, I think, just in the last couple of days, it got released. He's going to be making Batman: Brave and the Bold, but I got to admit, I don't see that movie coming out in the next 5 years, so it's going to be tough. So I mean, you're building this entire franchise on a lot of really obscure characters that just don't have the draw.
Well, I think if you go back to when Marvel movies first started. Because they didn't have Spider-Man, nor the Fantastic Four, nor the X-Men movies, which were their three biggest draws. Iron Man, as big as he was in the comic books, was nowhere near as big as Spider-Man or Wolverine.
No.
So Iron Man at first was a relatively obscure character.
Right. He's like a C-level character, B- level character.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with Thor. But they built them up and established it, so by the time they got to the Avengers, you were excited. I think James Gunn is trying to do that, but I think he's picking the wrong characters. I mean, Mike, when you went down the list of some of the stuff, some of them I do know. I have the very first copy of Blue Beetle when in the comic book when it first came out, and it was interesting. But he was more like a Peter Parker, a guy all of a sudden got powers from space but still had the problems of a teenager.
The problem is that I believe, and this is what I genuinely believe, because the difference with Guardians and the MCU and this is that James Gunn was not running the MCU.
Exactly.
He was just commissioned to make one film.
Right.
And in that sense, he succeeded. I didn't necessarily care for the second one. I own it. I thought he tried to just remake the same film. With the forced jokes and everything like that. And the third one I haven't even bothered to watch. But I think James Gunn is making these movies for himself.
Right.
He's not making it for the larger audience, like what do the fans want to see, or he's in such an insulated bubble that he actually believes that what he thinks is what the majority of people want. I don't see it going forward, but
right.
Hold on a second. We got some comments here. Tex says, I look forward to ranting on this film tomorrow night.
Yeah, he's been very vocal with me on Twitter and on the back channels about how much he didn't like the movie. So, yeah, we'll be getting his point of view tomorrow night.
Eric says, I enjoyed it overall. It's far from the dumpster fire that the internet is saying it is. Yes.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, so do I. And they've already dropped some new previews for Craven, and already the fucking, the trolls, the tanks, they're out there trying to tank. Tonight, The Flash, Scream 6 tomorrow, not in this life. I want to see The Flash. You should go see The Flash.
You should go see
it. I think, and that's that's the position of this channel, and I think all independent thinking people. See the movie for yourself.
Yeah.
And have an informed opinion. And I was saying this yesterday. If half the people who hated it had actually went to see it, the movie would actually be a fucking success.
Exactly.
But, is Gunn using the Flash to... No, it doesn't look like it. And no. I don't want... Patrick, we're going to get into spoilers here, so I'll just tell you now. Ezra Miller isn't doing any press for the Flash. That's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
No Cheetah they're rebooting. They're rebooting. As far as we know, Blue Beetle is supposed to be the official reboot. I have no interest in Blue Beetle. That looks like a kid's movie. It's got the guy Miguel from Cobra Kai. I think the Cobra Kai, fan base might shift over and see Miguel in this new movie. But it looks a little bit like the Miss Marvel kind of thing, where clearly, it's about teenagers and things like that. And I'm just too fucking old for that at this point. I saw Craven. Craven sort of looks interesting. I might go check that out. But there's a reason Miller isn't doing toxic. They basically told him to just please don't do us any more favors. The Flash should have been all right. The catch with the Flash is that it's being listed, and I don't know if this is true. It's perhaps the most expensive movie in history. Upwards of 300. Upwards. They say it's. I've heard some people claim, and it could be a projection, for the people who just want everything to tank. But I've heard anywhere from 250 to 350 million. So I don't know. And the idea is that that Warner Brothers is not disclosing the true figures, but some of these mega channels said that they hear from people that are, in these productions. Behind the scenes, get anonymous email saying, it's not this, it's really this. Yeah. All right, so let's get into the movie a little bit.
All right.
It starts out with Barry. He's starving for food, and I thought this was kind of a plot point that went nowhere with the calories.
Right.
And he's got to have something, and he's got the monitor on, and he's at critical, and then it kind of kicks off into he has to help Batman.
Right.
I kind of liked the idea that he was like the last on everybody's list to call.
Right.
Because they all just think he's kind of a pain in the ass. I thought that was a little self-deprecating, which was appreciated. And then we get to see about 10 minutes of Ben Affleck going at it as Batman. What did you guys think of that scene?
I thought Ben, because I've been hearing it all week long before the movie came out that Ben Affleck has stated if they want him to come back and play an older Batman, he would love to, because he said during The Flash he finally got it of what Batman was supposed to be.
Okay.
And I actually loved him in it. I love the fact that he wear more of the gray suit than the black one. He looked more like the comic book suit with the gray and blue. He looked like a badass in it.
Yeah.
I know some people I heard complain that he was working in the day. I'm like, well, read the comics. He worked in the day too, when it was a big deal.
Yeah. When the call comes, he fucking answers. Frank, what did you think? Oh, God, I'm sorry, John.
No, that's all right. That was pretty much it. I loved the new Bat Cycle. No joke intended.
Yeah, the Bat Pod. Yeah.
The Bat Bike. I'm sitting there going, holy shit, this actually looks great.
Slowly over time, Ben Affleck has won me over in these two portrayals as the Batman of maybe my favorite Batman. The Dark Knight is still the best Batman film, but Ben Affleck playing it extra dark like that in BVS and the Justice League. Frank, what did you think of the action? We get Wonder Woman, who comes to the rescue, always smoking hot to see. I always thought that Zack Snyder got like her best work. Yeah. But what did you think of seeing both of them in this? What did you think of the action?
the opening sequence I thought was a lot of fun. I think it's really fun how they portrayed Barry as kind of what he is. He's that annoying little brother to the older grown-up kids like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. So that was kind of fun to do that because he is relatively new to this whole life, whereas Wonder Woman had been doing it for a century now, and Batman, we're seeing a more grizzled Batman. We're not seeing the year one Batman from the Snyderverse, and then Superman, who's just he's just Superman. He's always kind of Superman from the beginning,
right?
But yeah, I thought it was really funny that self-deprecation you talked about, how they just kind of made him the annoying little brother.
Yeah.
The way Alfred was just kind of like, yeah, you were my last call, but I mean, we're here now, so go do this thing for me. And the stuff about eating the calories, I mean, it's kind of an in joke. I mean, obviously, if you've watched like the Flash TV show or anything like that, or read the comics, or if you're kind of in on the lore, that he burns calories at a much faster rate because of his abilities. So it's kind of a little in joke for the people who kind of know. They don't really explain it other than a couple of quick pieces of dialogue. But I mean, if you're watching the Flash, you've got to have a decent idea as to why that's an in joke. So, and even if you didn't get it, it doesn't make the scene any less funny. I mean, there's a lot of humor going around, a lot of really cool action. I missed where they said it was not Carmine Falcone, but it was someone named Falcone that they were chasing.
It was his son. It was his son, Falcone's son.
Yeah. I totally missed that being anybody related to the Falcones, but that was a nice little Easter egg for those of you in the Batman stuff. Yeah, I thought the opening sequence was a lot of fun. It got me into the movie really well. I compare the whole thing with Saving the Babies. It looked like something out of Deadpool. There was a lot of that. I felt like they were going for the Quicksilver scene in
I've heard that.
They didn't quite get it, but it was still a fun thing to see. So like seeing him like wolfing down the burrito and breaking into the vending machine while the kids are falling and stuff like that was kind of funny. But yeah, I thought the opening scene was a lot of fun. I kind of liked making him a pesky little brother. I thought that was because that's kind of what he is.
And I did have to laugh that when it stopped going with the slow motion, and the nurse just started screaming at him. I'm sure you heard of trauma. You're going through this experience. Find certain help. Don't ask the Justice League. They haven't learned that. I kind of giggled at that.
Yeah, there was a persistent sort of slapstick going on that didn't land all the time, but every once in a while it did.
When it landed,
did. Like when he ran and hit the wall.
Yeah.
Remember that scene where he ran? He thought he was going to hit the Speed Force, and he was going to vibrate through the wall, and he just hit the wall and fucking went. Like I laughed out loud when that happened. All right, so I mean, they made a couple of Snyder references to the nuclear thing in Russia that they had to do, with the mother boxes and going at it with Steppenwolf. So a little bit of acknowledgement for Snyder there. We get to see some new powers that he has, phasing, these sorts of things, and we get to see at some point even the new Barry, the second Barry, kill a couple people with that. It was, when things start to, in the second half, the story just fucking takes off.
Right.
When we start to get to Michael Keaton, but before that, it dragged a little bit for me. Ezra Miller plays it kind of like a 13-year-old kid. And, for better or for worse, it's just consistent throughout, where he just plays it where that, that prefrontal cortex in your brain just isn't fucking working. Here's a question. I didn't think he did. I thought Ezra Miller did a great job in Zack Snyder's Justice League as a peripheral supporting character. I don't think he's necessarily strong enough to be a leading man. Thoughts?
No, I agree with that. I think he is a very good, strong character.
Supporting character.
And it was weird because in this movie, and I think this is where, and I'll get to it when you start talking about Michael Keaton, but I think this is where there's a lot of people who thought that this was a Batman movie because they were showing a lot of clips of Michael Keaton even before it showed. But basically, Ezra Miller was playing a supporting role to Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
You were getting two different sides of that support. Ooh. And for people who play side-by-side characters that are like, I mean, no joke intended, since he played Alfred, Jeremy Irons in Dead Ringers, there's the same actor playing two different characters, and you believe they were two different characters.
Yeah.
to me, it was, and it's nothing against Ezra. He did what the best he could do. But I was sitting there going, no, there should have been either him alone, or him finding another character besides Batman from the Justice League that was human.
Because this is based on the Flashpoint paradox,
right?
The comic book, which is that's a pretty popular fucking DC graphic novel and storyline. And if you don't have access to the comic, if you have HBO, you can actually watch the animated version. And that Barry is completely different from this. I mean, traditionally, the Flash is much more. It's kind of a Grant Gustin, but he's like a broad-shouldered, lantern-jawed kind of specimen kind of dude, as opposed to this guy. He's playing it sort of new wave-ish, or I don't know, what he's playing it like. I guess he's playing himself. These sorts of things. We get to that part because we're going backwards in time. I don't want to get through every detail.
I liked Ezra Miller when he actually lost the powers in the movie.
Let's get to that, because we find out that Ezra's he figures out he can go back in time. Ben Affleck warns him, it's a bad fucking idea, but he decides to do it anyway. And then we get to what? Two Ezra Millers.
Right.
Ezra from the timeline that we know, and then the other Ezra who's still about 18 or whatever. This is where I started to struggle. Because it just started to, it was just like screeching in my ear. And this storyline went on for a good hour, not an hour, maybe 30, 40 minutes before it broke off into something else. Because if I said that Ezra was having a hard time as the leading man, then two Ezras, I'm just like, holy fuck. Frank, what did you think of the two Ezras?
It was interesting that he runs into himself as more of a dimwit, somebody who is not as mature. I mean, because I would imagine, I would imagine that after you've had these powers for a while, there's a certain amount of maturity that you have to face whether you want to or not. So having to go back to himself and deal with himself before the powers was kind of an interesting dynamic. It was just too much Ezra Miller on screen for me at one time. Some of the dialogue was pretty good towards the end between the two of them, but I was like, in the beginning, I was like, he went from, like I said, the opening scene to being the annoying little brother to having to deal with his own annoying little brother, or little twin brother even.
Right.
And I was like, he just kind of transferred that annoyance to the middle part of the film, where I kind of don't really want to deal with it. It was fun in the beginning, but not so much right now.
And that was one of the funny lines when the Ezra Miller, who was older, was listening to the younger one who didn't have the powers yet. And he goes, "Oh my God, I finally get what everybody says about me." About talking to me. But that was also in the key part of the writing too. On that,
there were because you don't know how many different scripts they spliced together to get this done. You don't know how many. I've heard people say, I guess people were like really, putting it under the microscope, that they actually felt that Ezra, like, you could, like, some people claim that they could see the difference in the reshoots, like where one was spliced here and like Ezra looks like coming from a different time frame. He looked a little different there. I'm sure everybody did the best that they could, just to try to get this out. But two Ezras was a lot to choke down. There was some humor in there. I said, I found a couple of the slapsticky parts really funny. I didn't really need to see Ezra's ass, for as long as it was in there. But, I guess that's just part of the comedy, so on and so forth. And then we get to, Now, I went to see this at 11 o'clock on a Saturday. Unfortunately, the theater was kind of empty. There weren't that many people in it, but I've heard other people say, that there were kids in there. They're like, maybe they shouldn't have fucking done that, because I went to like an IMAX. I would see it in IMAX.
So you got a butt shot. A butt shot is not the worst that you can get in a movie. So
that's it. But it's weird because you almost get no nudity nowadays in films. So okay.
Imagine going to an IMAX and watching the Watchmen and seeing Dr. Manhattan walking through naked.
Oh, geez. Okay, I did see that in IMAX. I forgot it. I haven't watched that in so fucking long. Yeah, speaking
It's like
yeah, dick fucking swinging. Size of a fucking size of a fucking pine tree.
We just reviewed that movie a couple of weeks ago. We were making a lot of fun about it, too. You couldn't put a cod piece on him or something like that. A little bit of
hey man, that's Alan Moore for you.
That's right,
Alan Moore. Have you heard that story that like Alan Moore hates Zack Snyder?
Right.
Have I ever told you guys that story? Because he thought that, in Moore's mind, Dr. Manhattan was the hero.
Right.
But when Snyder put the film out, I guess the fans gravitated towards Rorschach. So it was like the collectivists doing what, like Dr. Manhattan doing what's good for everybody, or Rorschach, who is just like, no, it's the individual, so on and so forth. And
what's one more body on the pile?
Apparently, fucking Moore hates Snyder. So,
to go back to where with the double Ezras, the one thing I noticed when I was sitting and watching it, if they cut 15 minutes off of that, like when they were in the apartment looking for people, or looking for the other heroes, if they got rid of some of that really or tightened it up, that would have actually made the movie flow better for me.
Here's the thing you could have done. You could have had him go back, like in the Flashpoint paradox, and just have him be the only Flash.
Yeah.
There's no two Flashes in the Flashpoint. It's just him, and he goes back and he finds Batman, but it's Thomas Wayne.
Right.
It's Thomas Wayne Batman, because in this universe, Bruce was the one who was killed.
Right.
And Martha Wayne becomes the Joker. Yeah, she becomes the Joker. So that would have been cool. I mean, the two Ezras really kind of made it drag there. I mean, at first it was kind of okay for a minute, and then it just fucking...
Yeah, and then it could have just like, all right, you got it, go. Keep moving.
So then we get to the point where, and this is where, now we're at about the halfway point. We get to the point where Zod shows up. And this is where I felt the movie started to really sort of, gain a little bit of momentum. Right. You got that old sort of dread feeling that you got from Zack Snyder, where the ship lands and just, announces in all those languages that they're looking for, someone from their planet that you assume is Superman. What did you think about, there's a lot, well, not a lot of it, but what did you think about the return of Zod? Michael Shannon.
I love seeing him. I think he's great in the role. I think he's awesome. I think Michael Shannon's a hell of an actor.
Yes.
Anytime I can see him on screen, I'm happy. I thought it was interesting that you bring in something from Batman. Oh, that was a Batman vs. Superman. That was a Batman vs. Superman.
Man of Steel.
Yeah. Man of Steel. Yeah.
Right.
To go all the way back to the beginning, I thought was interesting to kind of tie everything together. I thought maybe that was metaphorically a way to kind of bring the Snyderverse full circle, if this really is going to be the end of it.
It certainly is a validation, I think, of Man of Steel, especially when you see the way that the fight played out.
Right.
They needed fucking Clark there to fight that fight. No one else could have done that but him.
And Michael Shannon asked Zack Snyder's permission.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I really liked. He said, if you don't want me to do this, I'll walk away. And Snyder was like, no, go ahead. So it kind of got his blessing to the movie, even.
Now, because Zod is aside from what we saw with Terrence Stamp all those years ago.
Christopher Reeve healed before Zod.
Oh God, Zod.
But I also liked that the Ezra Miller, because he said I just got my powers, and he tried to help, and he failed.
I love that flashback where they inserted him into Zod's attack, and he's only able to save one person. I did really like that scene.
I did like that. I thought that was well done.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I forgot that. There were like 5 people in the theater, and I had my phone out, and I turned the lights all the way down, to text out on my Google Doc, the notes for the film, but I forgot to add that. Yeah, there's a really cool scene there where almost like at the beginning of BVS, where you see Bruce Wayne's perspective of Zod arriving. This was a quick 5-minute, intro where you got to see Barry's perspective of what happened. Yeah. That was really fucking cool.
Which actually was funny because in my head I went, well, that explains what he was during Justice League and everything else. But he said, I don't know how to, I don't know how to do it because he tried and failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was cool. That was a cool.
Yeah,
fucking
that was
scene.
a nice touch.
Okay, so they have to start looking for Justice League members. Arthur Curry doesn't exist in this universe. No one knows how to find Wonder Woman. They don't know how to find Clark. But they do know how to find Bruce Wayne, and that brings us to what is probably the highlight for most people in this film, the return of Michael Keaton as Batman. What did you think, John, of the whole setup? Like starting from Wayne Manor, what they did there. Did it feel authentic? Did it feel like 89 Batman to you?
I remember because when I saw 89 Batman, when it first came out, I wasn't a big fan. I liked it, but I sat there. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade came out, and for some reason I liked that better.
Yeah.
And there was a guy named, you might know, Mike, named Sean Fitzsimmons, who called me an idiot when I said that. But when Michael Keaton won me over eventually as Batman. So
Sean Fitzsimmons was full of shit. So for the record.
When they showed Wayne Manor and it was in all the cloud and the mist and everything else, in my head, I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
I did get excited. I really, all of a sudden I was like pumped to see what Keaton did. And before we get lost on it, I'll say this because I saw your preview thing before, your review of the movie. But I sat there and I said, Keaton to me took that Batman role, and I'll drop it after this, and aged it with this movie. He didn't try to play him like the young Bruce Wayne of old. The way he aged, it reminded me of the way Al Pacino aged Michael Corleone through all his movies, type deal. Okay. And it was believable. And I really got into it all of a sudden. Okay. If they tried to play him like he was back in 89, I probably would have walked out of the movie. Okay. I love the fact that he was more of the detective than the superhero.
Okay. Frank, what did you think the return of Michael Keaton as the Batman?
Well, just say the words and it evokes all kinds of happiness and smiles.
Yes, it does. People are smiling
faces everywhere. Yeah, I was in junior high when that movie came out, and that by far was one of my favorite movies, like of all time. Still is. And I'm one of the people that whenever I get a chance will shit on Tim Burton, but for some reason those first two Batman movies with Michael Keaton
I never miss a chance to shit on Tim Burton.
Well, I mean, Tim Burton, he's hit or miss. Either his movies are really, really good or they're really, really bad. There's not really a lot of in between with him. Right. Not for me anyway. I mean, there are Tim Burton sycophants out there that will think I'm crazy. Yeah. But I mean, him being a dark filmmaker, a dark character like Batman and Bruce Wayne, in a dark and gothic kind of thing like Gotham works out great. I mean, it was a chemistry for greatness. I wanted his Batman to be a bit different, but not too different, because I loved the Burton Batman that they created together. I was pretty happy with what I ended up getting from him. The one thing I don't quite understand is, me personally, I don't think Bruce would have become a hermit. I mean, him saying that Gotham, I did my job really well, and Gotham's one of the safest cities in the world. I get it. After 30, 40 years of him rolling around and kicking people's asses, I figured that would be a logical place for it to eventually end up. But him turning into a hermit kind of was weird to me. I figured he would still be Bruce Wayne, still be involved in stuff, still be a philanthropist, carrying on the more visible parts of his parents' legacy that he can be public about, and not do the vigilante stuff. But ultimately, it worked out in the end because he got back in the suit. So I'm not going to cry.
I actually wonder. I thought about that, Frank, because I was wondering if that was a tribute to Christopher Nolan's Batman. Because by the third movie, he was a hermit. Yeah, he was until he was needed again. I was wondering if that was kind of a little throw to that when I saw him play the hermit in the beginning.
The thing for me, it would have been cool, just in reference to what you guys were talking about, to see like if he had married Vicky Vale.
Yeah.
Or like if he had married Selena Kyle, like if Michelle Pfeiffer had been in there for like a couple of minutes, this, that, or the other, that would have been cool. This was okay. I mean, I'm just talking about the lifestyle. He hadn't become some drunk. He had just kind of become a recluse. He wasn't some, drinking all the time. He just lived alone, and, he kind of let the house fall apart. I love the design of the old house. you know, that you remember with the long table,
Yep.
you know, and the kitchen and everything from the date with, you know, for Vicky Vale. It was great to see him. I didn't necessarily like the long hair, but you know, he just kind of let himself go, so on and so forth. Good to see him. Initially, he doesn't want to get involved. I like the idea that he had solved crime in Gotham.
Right.
Eventually, in this universe, he had just become successful. He's like,
he did it.
Gotham's one of the safest cities in America now. You know, you don't have to worry about it anymore. You know, anything like that. I like that they did that with him. My reaction to 89 Batman, I was just in awe because we had never seen anything like that before. You know, we were coming off Adam West, you know, which is, you know, just preposterous, you know, unless that's your thing. But it seemed so fucking dark, you know, little did we know, you know, where it was going. Right. But I mean, the thing of it now is that, you know, before this, I had said, well, you know, it's very limited and look how far Batman has come, you know, through Nolan and, you know, the Schumachers or whatever, but Nolan and Snyder. And so, you know, it made 89 and 92 Batman look more like Burton campy films than an actual Batman film. But that sort of got thrown out the window here because he's capable of doing more now. You know, with the VFX and the fight choreography, you know, and all these different things. And it was cool to see that Batman get some action. Right. You know, they convince him to go in there. They track down what they believe is Clark. And it's not, of course, it's Sasha Calle, who is Supergirl. What did you think of Sasha Calle? I thought she was great. That was one of the most fun parts. I think she did a really good job. It's not Helen Slater. I didn't need her to look like Helen Slater. No. I thought she was hot in that fucking outfit. Yeah. So yeah, that was working for me. What did you guys think? Maybe I'm just a pervy old man, but I don't give a fuck. Because I don't know if she was holding up that outfit or that outfit was holding her up. But whatever it was, I wanted more of it. And yeah, no problem. And I love that wavy fucking haircut she had. Damn.
Don't think you're a pervy old man, Mike. You are a pervy old man. You're right there.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
I got to admit, because and this is my own prejudice, because there was the TV show that was on for a while too, and they were playing her with the skirt, and they really made her as if, you know, with the outfit, that if Clark was gone, but she would be still in that same family, that same lineage. I thought she was great. Yeah. I would love that they're supposed to be doing something in the DC universe where it's the women of DCU, you know, where they're having a lot of the women being featured in a film. I would love to see her play Supergirl in James Gunn's version of it. I thought she not only held her own, she held her own with a previous film when she went up against Zod. When she was, you know, we all had those images in our head. She held her own and very, very well. I thought she was wonderful.
Right?
Yeah, I thought she was very enjoyable in this. I mean, there is a hopefulness that exists in Kal-El, that character. He knows that mankind is by and large good, even though there are some segments of it that suck, that mankind is by and large a good thing. She knows that, but she's a lot more grizzled. She's a lot more gritty. She's a little bit more jaded than we usually see Kal-El or Clark. So, and I kind of like that different dimension to her, because she actually struggles for a minute with, like, maybe I don't want to join Zod, but I mean, maybe he's not wrong. Maybe I just bounce up out of here, let him do his thing, and I'll go on to whatever the hell the planet is next with people, and I can just chill out there. And she kind of comes to the conclusion that Kal-El kind of grows up in, that mankind is worth saving, and maybe what Zod is doing is wrong. And I don't want Zod to be the representative of Krypton if he's just going to walk in here and wipe people out. That's probably not the best way for them to see us, for the ones that might survive. So yeah, I really like her. And yes, she filled out the suit very well. I'm not going to complain.
And actually going back to the writing again, when she realized that Barry without powers saved her. wanted to save her, and he said, "What? Well, it's the right thing to do." That kind of gave her hope, which I thought was really nicely done.
Yeah, going back to what Frank said, she's justified in feeling this way because they've kept her a prisoner all these years. And in the Flashpoint, they find Clark, but he's fucking emaciated.
Right.
He's emaciated and he's childlike because he's had no social interactions. I like the idea that when Zod and Kara meet, that Clark was discovered, like they captured Clark and killed him. I like that reveal in the movie. What happened? She's sent to protect Clark, but Clark as a baby did not survive. They caught up to Clark
and killed him
as an infant and killed him, so he never reaches Earth. This is the only Kryptonian that is going to, be able to do anything, and she's not fully powered. I was hoping she was going to take that ride up into the sun, or something like that, like we saw in Man of Steel and in the BVS a couple of times.
Right.
But it doesn't happen. I also liked, and it's Ezra Miller, but I liked that the second Barry was a little more confident.
Right.
In this universe, he had a date with Iris.
Iris, right.
In this movie, he was talking to his twin about having children with Supergirl. Yeah. He's like, I want our children to see this. Like, he already was just like, this girl right here, her. Her. And I like that. It only there were only a couple of quick scenes, And
it was funny because if you notice, Supergirl smiled.
Yeah, she heard it.
When she heard that, I said some of that stuff they really tied in nice.
Yeah,
the storytelling type deal.
There are moments in this film that are genuinely enjoyable.
Right,
genuinely enjoyable. And it's dishonest to for people to say that the whole thing is just a big shit fest. It's not.
And even when they were going to break Kara out, you got to see some really cool moves of Michael Keaton.
Too. Yeah, what did you think of that? Michael Keaton's fighting. He's got some chops, man. Keaton's probably got to be in his 60s. I mean, obviously, it's stunt coordinators.
There was an older gentleman. There was an older gentleman sitting behind me, and when Michael Keaton looked and he saw the guns, he goes, "This is going to hurt." The guy in the back behind me started laughing. He said, "Bet your ass." But he did. He started laughing at it. But that proves that they were really getting into this story that they were presenting.
Yeah.
And Keaton kicked ass. I was worried they were going to make him 89, young, and he wasn't. He was an older man, but still doing the moves he had to do.
Yeah. It was good stuff.
I noticed that he also had much better movement in the costume in this movie than he did in the movies in the original two movies. Because there's always a big joke being made about how when he turns, he can't turn his head; he has to turn his whole body like that.
He has to turn his body like that.
He definitely had a lot more mobility in this costume, which was kind of nice to see. Which makes sense because you figure he's had 40 years now to perfect the costume. He may as well, he might get it right.
And this is strange because we also know that the Batgirl movie was canceled.
Right.
And, he was scheduled. He was in that. It makes you wonder, WB shelved some projects, they released some, dropping others, so on and so forth. I wasn't crazy about the idea of the return of Michael Keaton. I'm glad I was wrong.
I was
wrong, man.
I keep hearing and reading things. They said if they get a chance, they would love to do Batman 2000. The future, Batman Beyond, I'm sorry. And the older Bruce Wayne, they said, well, you got to ask Keaton. If they're actually going to do this, if they don't ask Keaton, they're foolish. Because Keaton would make a good older Batman trying to train someone to do his job.
We shall see. Yeah, I don't know if he's
and on top of that, it's like his career has gon through a bit of an upswing in the last 10 years or so. Anyway,
got a renaissance.
I don't know if you've seen Birdman or not. That was kind of his full time comeback into the league. And then Spotlight is one of my favorite movies that's come out in the last 10 or 12 years. He's phenomenal in that. And that's one of the reasons why now we're finally getting Beetlejuice 2 is because his star, because you couldn't have made that movie without him. but there wasn't really a call for it. But now that he's had this big career resurgence, now that he pretty much carried the last half of this movie, now that he's one hot again, now we better rush Beetlejuice 2 into production because there's a market for it. So
he was also great as the Vulture in Spider-Man: Far From Home.
I thought he was
whatever, Welcome Home or whatever. Yeah, something.
His intimidation factor in that movie.
Oh yeah. When he's in the back, when he's talking to him in the front, in the back seat.
Yeah, even without his gear on, I'm like, man, Mike, it's good to know you're still acting. You know.
Yeah, he can still do it, man. He can still do it. It was a great idea. You know, again, following off the Chitauri, we're gonna maybe grab a little thing here, a little thing there, maybe turn a little profit there, so on and so forth. And like the Starks, the Starks, commandeer all the equipment. They've got a contract with the city, but it doesn't matter because Tony Stark steps in and just outpowers him. His little construction teams. Good stuff.
Exactly.
What did you think of the action, the fight scenes, man? I was very impressed. It definitely, I was watching this and I kept thinking, man, I miss Zack Snyder. That heavy testosterone, because this movie didn't have that feel in the first half. It feels sort of like two different separate movies. You got this emoting comedy thing going on in the first half, and then you go into, what most Zack Snyder movies turn into in the second half, which is just an hour-long, testosterone fest. What did you think of those fights with Zod?
Go ahead, Frank. You want to go first? I keep jumping in. But...
No, you're fine. No, they were awesome. I mean, I don't understand why people kind of complain about the CGI. I get it that it seems a little foggy and hazy. That's kind of the impression that I got as I was watching the movie the other day. But you got to think of what's happening. You're in the middle of a desert fighting a battle, so there's going to be some haze and fog and dust and whatnot, smoke from explosions and whatnot. So I kind of got it. But on the other hand, I was thinking about it. It was actually kind of right in line with the effects that we got in Man of Steel. There is this kind of toned down, dingy quality that they've given the DCEU up to this point. And that's kind of one of the things I like about it, is that it is a little bit darker. The tone, the dialogue, the events, I don't want to see just another, Tony Stark out there making jokes, but this time he's wearing a cowl and ears and not an Iron Man suit. I don't want it to be the same as the MCU. One of the things that I think differentiates DC from Marvel, both at the comic book level and even in some of the animation and stuff, is the fact that it's a lot darker. And I want them to embrace that. And I thought one of the things the Snyderverse had done very, very well is to go with that. That's why there was a lot of dark colored palettes. There wasn't a lot of sunshiny days.
Right. I like the muted colors. I love Snyder's use of muted colors and the blues. Yeah. To make the world look a lot darker, to make it feel more serious. I think it was a great aesthetic choice for what they've been doing with DC up to this point.
Right.
It's one of the things that does differentiate them from Marvel.
Even in the Supergirl suit. The Supergirl suit was like a darker blue and a darker red, even from Henry Cavill suit in Man of Steel. They really made her look darker. Not much, but it was like a shade or two down on each. And I dug that a lot.
Even the lighter colored gold in the Supergirl logo was much more muted, much more diffused. I just think the way that they've presented it, the aesthetics have always been pretty good. I mean, look, every CGI heavy movie is going to have its moments. Right. I mean, as much as I love Black Panther, there's the part where they're falling down the whole big shaft and fighting. That CGI didn't look great, but I mean, it didn't take me out of the movie because it happens really fast. But I mean, every movie that's CGI heavy is going to have some spots where maybe they didn't have quite enough time to render things a little bit more, to mess with some code. So I mean, if it doesn't take you out of the movie, who cares? I think people that bitch about that are just looking for things to bitch about.
I saw a couple of reviews where people were like picking that shit out of Pepper, man. Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I think one of the things that social media has done in the negative sense, especially with movie reviews and things like that, I think a lot of people have forgotten how to just sit down and enjoy a movie.
Right. I agree.
Everything has to be broken down and analyzed. And if you don't like the company, then you're already set up something in advance, where you're like forced to hate it, and you're just, man, shut up,
And going back to the fight scene, Mike, that you were talking about, every time that they went up in these fights, it was believable. Yeah. Like when Batman, with all of his toys and everything else, when he couldn't beat somebody, so to speak, or when he was hitting that one guy who was the giant, they were calling him, and he was putting all these different bombs. When the one blew up in the back of his head, the whole movie theater burst out laughing and cheered. But it really did build it up because it wasn't, Tony Stark shooting things and Thor hitting them. It was gritty. It was choreography wise was fantastic.
Yeah,
even
and
with the two Millers doing I'm shooting lightning, or what was it? Let me Empire the guy.
Yeah,
that type deal.
Yeah,
even that was gritty because they were taking people out and shit, killing them.
These were great fights. It's unfortunate. Mm-hmm. Zack Snyder, he didn't get a fair shake. He didn't get a fair shake from the people who just no matter what he put out, they weren't going to accept.
But the director did a lovely tribute to him when he could, type deal. He really he held it up, especially when it came to the Zod fight scenes.
Yeah, and this idea that in this universe Zod wins, Zod wins. I mean, I love that. That you get to see you get to see them die twice, essentially.
Right.
You get to see Supergirl die twice. You get to see Batman die twice.
Right.
After the second fight with all the grenades, I think Batman's heart just gives out.
Right.
Like I think he just has a heart, and it's just it's this idea, and then you start to get into the thing where the younger Barry just keeps going back and back and back to try to reset it, and this idea which you get in the start of the film, which is that some things just can't be changed.
Right. I love the one scene where in the second time, spoiler alert, everybody, when Batman's dying and he's in Barry's arms, and Barry went, "I can go back and save you," and he looked at him and said, "You already did."
Yeah.
And that wasn't because he came back a second time. I'm dying as Batman. If I had, and I love
instead
that.
of in my house, it's just sitting in my house.
At least I'm dying trying to save the world. I really did. I love that.
Yeah. We get to the part where Superman they're going back and they start to realize the one Barry just keeps going back and back and back and back and he can't change anything, and then we get to where they're starting to collapse all the realities, and this is where it truly kind of becomes a multiverse. And this comes to the part where I didn't get much out of it. The cameos. We get to the part where we see all the worlds start to collide, and we just get everybody and their mother showing up again. It didn't do much for me. What did you guys think? Did you? I mean, we got Christopher Reeve, we got Helen Slater, we got George Reeve, we got Adam West, we got Nick Cage.
That was the one that kind of blew the theater away.
You had Cesar Romero.
Was Cesar Romero in there? Okay.
And no, you heard the Joker's laugh. That's what somebody said. They had
Yeah.
Now,
wait. Well, before we get into, I love that Barry found the bag with Jack Nicholson's laugh in it. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. What is this?
And it was funny because in the movie theater, all the adults laughed and the kids went, "What?"
We don't get it.
It was great.
Yeah.
But now, this is where the cuts come in for the movie, because I read about this first, and then I actually saw a nice little thing on YouTube about it. That whole concept of seeing all the worlds, they were setting up for a second Flash movie, The Crisis on Earth, where it was all the different
Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Yeah. That's what they were setting up for. I think, and I'm sorry, I cannot remember the director's name now. The way he did some of those tributes in this movie, you may get mad at me, Mike. I was actually looking for more. I would have loved to have seen the guy who played Flash in the TV show.
That would have been nice.
Ezra Miller came to the TV show in their Crisis on Earth. I would have loved to have seen Linda Carter as Wonder Woman.
That apparently was a cameo that ended up getting shut down for some reason.
And that's another thing. I mean, there were apparently a number of cameos that Gunn, in his newfound role, in his infinite wisdom, decided to edit out, like Henry Cavill scenes.
Yeah,
there are quite a few.
I would have loved to have seen their reaction if they all looked at this fight that was going on. I liked it, even though I agree it was a little too long. I liked the fact because it was for us as a viewer. These were all the different versions of all the different DC universes that we saw. It was kind of saying, okay, this isn't now all done. We're going with something new. I really do think that may have been just a promotional thing as well. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, all I know is that the uber nerd in me was like fangirled for a minute. I was like, ooh, look at all these cameos.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. I mean, if you're gonna mess with this multiverse stuff, which I'm not a big fan of multiverse or time travel, to be honest.
Right.
You have both in this movie. I just think it really makes your movie kind of confusing. But I mean, they managed to make it work in this because you do kind of take a minute in that scene where they're in the time dome, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
Where you see you bring in the Adam West, the Christopher Reeves, kind of bringing it all full circle and making DC this one beautiful universe that these things may not exist in a straight line with each other.
Right.
But like it is really this one big beautiful universe that, I mean, because in the comics there's like 3 or 4 different runs of a character going at one time, especially back in the 80s. So exactly. Why can't you get an image of that on screen as it's happening like in real time in the film? But yeah, I mean that was pure fan service. I had no problem with those visuals at all. Personally, I would have gone ahead and thrown Henry Cavill's cameo in there because why not? I would have gone ahead and thrown Shazam in there even. Why the hell not?
Why not?
If you're going to throw in Christopher Reeve and all that, why not just tell your crowd, tell the viewer, yes, all of this great shit that we've done from the beginning of DC back in 1930, whatever, to right now, it all exists in this one great place. And maybe metaphorically, you could say that time dome is kind of representative of all of our hearts, that we kind of hold all these characters dear to us over the years. Because I grew up watching the Adam West stuff, and then along came Michael Keaton, and then on and on down the line. I grew up obviously watching Christopher Reeves, and on down the line. So it's like to think that all these people kind of exist in this one place, that it's a giant memory for us. I thought that would have been a really cool metaphor. Just to go ahead and throw it all in there.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm looking here, and it says, there was also going to be Marlon Brando, Cesar Romero. So apparently there were a number of, cameos that were cut out of it. But that's,
dude, I would have paid good money that if all of a sudden when they're going through all these scenes, you start hearing da 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 Batman. If you heard the old Batman theme from the 60s, I would have laughed my ass off at that because of just for the fact of like Frank was saying, bringing the whole thing in. It would have been, don't get me wrong, I agree, they could have cut it a little bit, but they could have just made the cameos quicker. I didn't have to see Nick Cage fight a spider.
That's a killer in joke, though.
Oh yeah. It was a great in. Yeah, it was a great in joke.
For those of you who know why that was a significant little cameo, I mean, it hits a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Because I remember when me and my girlfriend went and saw it, she looked at me, she goes, "Is that Nicolas Cage?" And I was like, I'll explain when the movie's over. Yeah, she had no idea. She was just completely confused, but I was like, I'll explain it to you when the movie's over.
Not too many people know that story. Well, some do.
Yep.
We get to the point where Barry ends up going back, and through Hooker, and there is sort of an emotional scene where he has to let his mom go.
Yeah.
But he comes back to this universe and he manages to spring his dad. I think inadvertently. Finally, his dad is freed out of all after all those years, for not killing his mother. He's been falsely accused. And we get to the end of the movie where, he calls up, I think he calls Bruce, and Bruce is like, "Hey, I'm pulling up right now."
Yep. And
somebody had told me that they had seen that movie on a test screening, and when the shoe stepped out, the screen went black, and that was it.
Right.
They didn't show the final reveal.
Right.
I saw somebody say that. Here we get out, and it's George Clooney.
George
Clooney Batman. Yeah. What did you? I mean, it didn't have all that much impact on me. I don't know if this means that what is it, Batman, the Brave and the Bold, because they need an older Batman for that. So I don't know if that means that the new Batman for Gunn is George Clooney. Nobody, that hasn't been announced yet. But what did you think of seeing? I mean, is he in the Raw universe again?
If I can, I personally love the fact that it was George Clooney, and I was sad that it wasn't Val Kilmer, but I know Val Kilmer was also sick. But when Val Kilmer played Batman and then left the series, Val Kilmer turned around and basically complained about Joel Schumacher, saying they're making the villains too big and corny. They're taking away from the character of Batman. They're making it like all you want to do is sell toys. And when George Clooney played Batman, I remember Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel complimenting him for having such a small part in a movie that was named after him and still bringing something to it. But they complained about Arnold Schwarzenegger having a every other line was a joke, and Uma Thurman, every other line was a joke. And they said Clooney actually tried to do something. I mean, there's a famous joke because the next year, The Perfect Storm came out. And when The Perfect Storm was number one, George Clooney and his friends were in the bar and they were holding up glasses saying to George Clooney, star of The Perfect Storm. And Clooney turned around and said, let's be honest. The star of The Perfect Storm is that big and wave. But since they blame me for killing the Batman franchise, I'll take it. So I kind of like the fact that they brought him in there to basically say, like, here you go. Yeah, I really do. That's what I think it was.
All right. That's fair. But it didn't negatively impact me. I was just like, okay, it's George Clooney, no problem.
And I love the fact that the Flash looked at him and said, "Who the fuck are you?"
Yeah.
I laughed out loud.
You were Batman? What's wrong with you?
The one F-bomb you get in a PG-13, you used it well. Yeah, I watched that scene with I wish I could go back in time and look at the look on my face when that happened. I'm sure it was something of befuddled excitement. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I didn't figure it was going to be Ben Affleck, but I didn't know where they would go with it. I know at one point that cameo was not supposed to be Bruce Wayne. I think I had read that it was actually supposed to be Kara coming down out of the sky and landing in front of Barry, and they have some kind of a conversation that was supposed to be significant. But maybe because plans have changed so much over the last.
Hold on a second. It says the Flash had 3 different endings during production. Let's see. Number 1, Keaton's Batman and Kali's Supergirl at the courthouse.
Right.
2, Kali's Supergirl, Cavill's Superman, Gadot's Wonder Woman, and Keaton's Batman at the courthouse. And 3, the one currently in theaters.
Oh, I voted for number 2. That'd have been awesome.
Yeah,
I would go with number 2. Yeah, number 2.
Number 2 was the one I thought that I read a lot about, which I thought would have been really cool if that happened.
Gunn apparently wanted no part of Henry Cavill. A lot of people feel that, if they saw that, then fans would not be satisfied with his choices for the new Superman. I don't believe that people are going to be satisfied.
There's nothing he's going to be able to do to satisfy people. So,
No.
So do what you think is right.
He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't get it. He doesn't.
Yeah, I was left a little confused because I'm looking at. George Clooney stepping out. I was like, that's interesting as hell. That kind of makes me wonder. Is he going to be brave and the bold, or was this just a little bit of fan service and what we're going to, we're going to squeeze one more outrageous cameo in here to get word of mouth going, and we'll go ahead and make it George Clooney because, like you said, Val Kilmer is probably not acting a whole lot right now because of his health stuff. Yeah. Now, although I do think you could have done a deep fake of Val Kilmer. I mean, it could have been something like a video phone or something like that. That would have been cool.
I'm sorry.
But I was kind of left a little confused. I'm like, so does this mean that he's in the world going forward, or is this just a last little spoonful of fan service? Is this just a little shock? I mean, what is
this? Is what happens when you. This is what happens when you drop a movie that is clearly slated not to be continued. You're going to, because I think Ezra Miller is done as the Flash.
I think so too.
Like they kept their mouth shut. We're just going to get this movie out. I saw somebody say this. Hold on. I'll bring it up, and it was an interesting point as to why Muschietti. Hold on, let me see if I can bring it in. Yeah, here we go. And it says, for anyone who has seen The Flash, I ask in genuine curiosity, what does Andy Muschietti offer that makes him suitable for a Batman movie? He used to follow in the footsteps of auteurs like Burton and Nolan and go head-to-head with Reeves, yet seems totally anonymous and unequipped. And this guy said, assuming this question is asked sincerely, Muschietti is a good soldier. He got a cursed production into cinemas, in line with corporate priorities, a project that had been impossible to staff with directors and was hounded by controversy. Right. He did his job exceptionally.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And I honestly think, because I know it's cliche because I've read a lot of other people, but the more and more I think about it, I really do think this movie was the end of the old DC EU. You know, it was just saying, okay, and this is how we're going to end it. And
I have somebody. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's all. Because I think, yes, they're going to do Batman Beyond, and James Gunn's probably going to pick somebody else to play Batman. You know, they may pick somebody completely different whatsoever. I think that's why Ben Affleck was saying, I would love to do it if you're going to, you know, look to hire people.
I think that I had somebody on here from Geeks and Gamers the other day, Odin, and he was saying that he didn't think that, like, there's a writer's strike going right now.
Right.
My understanding, we're probably a week or two away from an actor strike.
Yep.
Barely more than a director's strike.
Yeah, these projects may be completely shelved.
Oh yeah.
You know, he was speculating that, you know, Gunn may never actually get a movie made.
Right.
He may never actually, because this is going to set things back, you know, with the things that are already being held up.
Yeah.
For a very long time.
Right.
And supposedly this strike and the two of them together may not end until the end of the year. And that's a setback of years.
That's right.
For the things that are, one, you know, in production right now, but on the shelf because they can't continue filming, or they can't make any adjustments to the scripts. They can't do any rewrites.
Dude, I remember the strike they had back in '88.
That went on a while, didn't it?
That went on for a while, and you lost TV shows. You lost other movies. I mean, it just all fell apart. This could affect it.
This could be another thing where he never actually gets started. He never gets out of the gate.
We were talking it at the movie theater. Because I got a new job, you know, being they're training me to be a supervisor for either Stone Harbor or Rio Grande's movie theaters. And the woman, I sent you her name, who works with Trauma Films. She turned around and she said, like, one of the things the pandemic did, which actually took a big hit on some of these movies, was the fact everybody stayed home and went to Netflix and they watched all the lovely pop stuff that everyone was talking about, but eventually they started digging, and they found A24. They found other movies that people hadn't spoken about, and all of a sudden found them interesting. This may change everybody's opinion on what is considered "quote unquote" entertainment.
We're already seeing that many projects are being shelved. We got companies like Warner Brothers that are $50 billion in the hole. We got streaming services that are losing subscribers. You know, they're just bleeding subscribers. Who knows how this is going to end up? And, you know, he may have been right. Odin may have been right. That Gunn never actually gets to film a single thing.
Exactly.
You know, if enough time goes by. And I'm almost crossing my fingers that happens, because what I want to happen actually is, you know, for if he does drop a couple and they bomb, the fan request for the return of Snyder is just not going to stop. And I hope, I don't need him necessarily, I just want him to finish those two Justice League movies.
Yeah.
That's my personal thing. Finish those two movies, and then I never really need to see another comic book movie again.
I think part of it also for Gunn is timing, because I think he only signed a 2 or 3 year deal to even be the head of DC Pictures or DC whatever. Right. So if this writer's strike drags on, I mean, yeah, sure, you've already got Blue Beetle in the can, it's coming out. You've got Aquaman in the can, it's coming out. But it's going to be really hard to start filming on the Superman movie if this thing continues to drag out, which is already not going to come out until close to the end of what his contract would be anyway. Yeah. And I know a lot of people have kind of talked about, well, if you know, the stuff performs well under his tutelage, but, you know, and that first movie does well, they'll extend his contract out. But I'm like, how do you make that assessment as to whether this stuff was good
Right.
or bad if production has once again kind of gotten stalled because of
Yeah.
the various strikes and whatnot? First it was pandemic, now it's strikes, and it's really hard. I mean, these movies take years to get together and to get filmed and to get on a camera, to get it on the screen.
Right.
I mean, you're looking at, you've only got 2 years roughly left if he signed a 3-year deal to do this, and now you're looking at a writer's strike, and writers aren't just right. They don't just write the movie and walk away. They're on set to do rewrites. They're on set to do punch-ups. So if you can't have a writer on set to do those punch-ups, and James Gunn wouldn't be able to do them because he's a member of the Writers Guild, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
So he's by the bylaws of the WGA not allowed to do punch-ups and rewrites and stuff on set, even though he's on set actually as a director. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff kind of at play here to where the timing of all this might put a lot of stuff for him in question.
Well, time will tell. We can only hope, or at least I can only hope.
Now, if all else fails, James Gunn can run really fast and go backwards in time and try to stop the writer's strike.
Or try to convince Marvel for Guardians of the Galaxy 4.
They got all the things that we just talked about with the streaming services and just movie companies being in the red, billions of dollars. Right. 20,000 writers in the WGA right now. At this time, asking for a better deal. I don't think they're going to get much anyway. So this strike could go on for a very long period. There are 20,000 writers. So there are a lot of writers that just aren't working.
Yeah.
There aren't that many projects for 20,000 writers.
Oh, exactly.
So, I mean, you've got the top tier people that, are working all the time, and then you've got some other people, maybe a couple people in the middle, and then it's a pyramid. And then you've just got everybody else down there at the bottom. And you're really, Warner Brothers is $50 billion in the hole, and you're going to ask for, good luck with that.
You also got to take in consideration, being on the point of view of having written a few scripts myself, that you got to take in, some of them are also writing commercials. No joke intended. Some of them are writing, there's a guy that right up in Summers Point runs a place called Studio Space. He was in California for years, Carnegie Mellon University, got his master's degree in writing. He was literally a script doctor. They said, we need a monologue here. We need, but he's
my point is there aren't 20,000 jobs.
There isn't 20,000 jobs. Yeah.
There isn't 20,000. There's nowhere even near that much.
Yeah. You do what you find and do what you can.
Yeah. And I guess you get a waiter's gig in the meanwhile. That's I guess that's what the gig is.
Well,
all right, listen.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to kind of get to the point where we rate the film, actually.
Okay.
This channel has a rating system of 0 to 5, going up by halves. So 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5, all the way to 5. So 0, for example, would be I'd rather live for a year in an RV than watch this movie again. All the way to 5, which is like, this is cinema. This is, the reason I talk about movies in the first place, so on and so forth. John, what would you give Andy Muschietti's The Flash?
I was thinking about this because I knew, and it was funny because I sat there and I said I would love to do like a hedge between like a 0.5 and 0, but I won't. I would.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah, I would give it a 3.5. To me, when I was working in college, that was anywhere between a C+ to a B-. Okay. I'd give them that only because there were some stuff that worked. Was it a great movie? No. It wasn't a bad movie.
It was better than Black Adam.
Yeah. And
I didn't mind Black Adam.
I thought Black Adam was pretty fun.
Yeah, and this was better than that.
Yeah.
This was better than Black Adam.
There were a lot more positive points to me than negative.
Yeah.
So I give it like about 3.5.
All right, Frank, what do you got for The Flash?
I hate rating movies; it's so terrible. But
do it.
I'm kind of with John on this. I think 3.5 is a fair place because there was. I mean, if this was going to be kind of the I mean, again, we don't know what we're getting out of Aquaman. We don't know if they've reworked that to kind of open the door to the new DCEU, or if that's going to be the actual finale of the Snyderverse. But I mean, if this was going to be the last time we saw Ezra Miller, saw the Flash, well, for a while anyway, if this was the last we were going to see of Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, whatever, you may as well have thrown all the cameos in there and just had fun with it. Let it be some camo, orgasmic, whatever, and just, go balls to the wall of the fan service and let them have it if this is going to be kind of where the stopping point is before we get to the newer version of whatever this stuff's going to be. So a bit of a wasted opportunity there. Another wasted opportunity was Iris. I mean, she's not really in the movie. She doesn't mean anything to the movie. I mean, she's there. Barry goes gaga on her for a while, but in a movie full of super powered or super able people, Batman, Flash, whatever, Zod, she could have been the one human character that kind of brought everything back to ground when necessary. Yeah. Because that's kind of what she does, what she had done the TV show. Is like there was
she was annoying in that fucking TV show, though. Holy shit.
Her character grounded Barry to something a little more real than the superhero shit. And that's an important thing to have in a movie like this. She isn't in the movie at all. And it's nothing against Kirstie Clemons, who plays the role. I mean, she didn't have a big enough role. Yeah. I mean, they didn't flesh her out enough. It's like she's there, she asks a couple of questions, and then
I hate to say this
up at the end, and that's it. I'm like,
I hate to say this, but she fleshed out a little bit. Now, I don't know if anybody noticed that. Someone pointed it out to me, and I was like, oh, she did. She got a little bigger from when we dropped her into Justice League. So I don't know if that was a detraction as to why she got so little screen time. She's always wearing that bulky kind of coat. But, yeah, she's in it for a little bit. I wasn't terribly impressed. I mean, Iris is a major character in the Flash story. I didn't like that Iris in the Arrowverse because I just thought she was fucking annoying. I wanted to see more of her from Justice League, but yeah, we didn't get her.
Well, when I was talking earlier about with the two Barrys talking to each other, they said there should have been somebody else. It could have been the Iris of that time to see if she. I mean, because Barry had a date with her from that time to hear her perspective.
Okay. Well, for me. Because I gotta start wrapping this up soon. No, it's okay. I'm going to go with a 3.5.
There you go.
I'm going to go with the 3.5. I gave Black Adam a 3. So yeah, this is 3.5. I thought the two Barrys made it really rough, and I thought that a lot of that first half of the story dragged, but the second half completely picked it up for me. I really enjoy. That's the most enjoyment I've gotten out of Keaton Batman since maybe 1989. Because looking back at and then like after you get to Nolan, I'm like, I don't want to watch Keaton Batman. I want to watch Batman Begins. I want to watch The Dark Knight and so on and so forth. Sasha Calle as Supergirl, loved it. Loved the fight scenes. Michael Shannon. I would have liked to have seen more of Michael Shannon. But we didn't get that, but we got great action. I thought it was very Snyder-like. It resolved itself fairly well. The cameos didn't do much for me, but that's okay. It didn't really have any impact one way or the other. And the ending, I mean, seeing Clooney, it was okay. It was okay. I thought, and I can't get into it because I really am running out of time for this. I got to do something in a couple of minutes, but the post-credit scene with Jason Momoa, I thought was kind of ridiculous and pointless. It didn't really do anything.
Well, I mean, it gives us a little bit of juice for Aquaman, which comes out in a couple of months. It's kind of the first unofficial trailer for Aquaman.
I don't like what they did with him. I like Snyder's Aquaman, who's, he drinks, but he's a serious character. He has some comedic, talent there, but
exactly.
Yeah, he wasn't like a fall down drunk, where like Barry's the rational person. So that didn't do much for me.
Well, he's all broken up about Amber Heard being beat in court. That's why.
right. Yeah. All right. Listen, I hate to do this, but I gotta wrap this up because I gotta set up something. I gotta go house sit across the street for the next week. My thanks.
Thanks, man.
This was a movie that's worth talking about, and I think generally we're in agreement here, or even with some specifics as to this film getting a lot of undeserved hate, and I think it's a lot of forced hate. for people that either haven't seen the movie or just want to tank everything. And yeah,
Right.
I have no interest in having the film industry in our country tanked. So that's not the position of this channel. My thanks, though, to Frank from The Harsh Truth for stopping in again. My thanks to John K. Alvarez, the Pasta Punk Paradox. My thanks to everyone in the chat who stopped by for this show. I will be back tomorrow. I'm going to drop a solo review of a film I saw today with Sean Patrick Flannery called Nefarious, which is just fucking amazing. And then I'm going to be here on Wednesday because I'm going to take a look at, I think I am, I'm going to take a look at Secret Invasion.
Right.
And I'm curious as to what that's going to be.
Right.
Sam, I'm not a big MCU fan that much anymore. I've sort of fallen away after Infinity War. But I'm curious as to what they're going to do with Sam Jackson and how he's going to play it. So he can usually do some heavy lifting. And if it's good, it's great. If it's not, I'll let you know. My thanks to everybody here today for this one. And we will see you in the next video. Have a great one, everybody.
See you around, guys.